I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield on Monday, February 28, 2022, to order at 7:04 p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolstock Way land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolstock, along which live Woolstock Way, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. I would like to take a moment at the beginning of this meeting to have a moment of silence for the Ukrainian civilians and soldiers who have perished so far in the unprovoked military action against the democratic country of Ukraine by Russia. I pray for peace, and I know I speak for us all when I say to the people of our town, stand with the people of Ukraine and the Ukrainian Canadian community, both here in our region and across the nation. Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record reflect that we have full attendance here this evening. Item 5, agenda approval. That the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of February 28, 2022 as presented.
So,
thank you, Councilor Bowman.
Council, not all the proposals for the Shades of Green work were included in the council package. So there's actually more. They were put in your SharePoint around lunch. I don't remember if it was before lunch or after lunch. After lunch. So my apologies that some of them were neglected. The ones that were neglected were with the Recreation Department and the Fire Department. And just encourage you to ask the Fire Chief and Recreation Director about those at that time.
Do we need to amend it?
No, we'll just add them in and just thought this would be a good time to cross them out. So.
Thanks. So I have Councilor Bowman has the motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Councilor Dake. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any? There being none, let's move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. 7A, renaming of Entity 51, a presentation by John Taylor. Prior to Mr. Taylor doing his presentation, I would like to invite our LSD committee representatives to join us around the table. Louis Guijou and Shelley Totten, would you please join us?
Right there, Louis. Right here.
And do we have John on the line?
Yes, hello. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, good evening, John. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Nicole, there's a bit of a blur filter over council. Would you mind removing that so I can see who I'm talking to?
There's a what?
A blur filter.
Oh.
So we're just on.
I can tell you're there. I just don't know who you are.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
That's better.
Thanks.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
We're looking forward to your presentation. You've been patient and waiting for the right moment, so thank you for that, and the floor is yours.
Perfect. I'm just going to share my screen here. Is that clear to everybody?
It is, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you to council and LSD representatives for inviting me to give this presentation today. and indulging my love of local history and names after what has really been quite a vigorous week of discussion in this community about names. Originally, I had intended for this presentation to be somewhat of a call to action, given the very short timeline presented to us by local governance reform. But thanks to the prudent decisions by council and the rest of the transition team, an official name review is already underway, so that's great. Instead, what I want to do with this presentation now is sell the idea of a name change in general. I'm not going to be pushing any particular alternative, but I'm going to hopefully be able to convince you and our residents that we can at least do a little bit better than Grand Bay-Westfield. Now, I say all of this with love because I did grow up here, but Grand Bay-Westfield is an awkward name. It's often very confusing to both residents and visitors. And as I'm reminded every time I fill out a government form, it is very, very long. Because the town is being merged, though, with a portion of the Westfield LSD, our community has an opportunity to adopt a more inclusive, convenient, and recognizable name. Though it has served us well for 20 years, Grand Bay-Westfield is simply too long, and it's also a reminder of amalgamations past. If left unchanged, it'll also become a constant reminder of an unwanted amalgamation to many of our new residents across the Narrapus River. Residents' vocal displeasure with amalgamation has already reduced the portion of Westfield LSD that's actually going to be joining the town. It's very important that the town make the remaining 55% of Westfield LSD's residents feel included in their new community so that we can grow and prosper together. Now, residents' anxieties about amalgamations often become fixated on the name of the new municipality. Residents rightly feel that their identities are threatened when the name of one former municipality is applied to the whole, especially when it's the name of the bigger municipality. This is why Minister Alain has been so adamant about being from Louisville rather than Moncton. Residents care deeply about their community identity and don't want to feel like that's being wrestled away from them. After the 1998 amalgamation, Grand Bay-Westfield compromised by hyphenating the two municipalities' names. Unfortunately, adding a third hyphen to include Westfield LSD's Sunset Valley or Britton Road, it just becomes too unwieldy. We're long and awkward already. Instead, the town should focus on developing a new name that can make this a harmonious transition for everybody and better position us as a competitive place to work, live, and play. This is about starting something new, not about taking something old away. What I want to get across is that this is an opportunity, it's not a problem. One of the foremost experts on place names in New Brunswick was William F. Ganong. He is especially important for our town because he standardized many of the community names that we now see along our heritage trail. Ganong wrote that place names persist mostly because of inertia. Unless acted upon by some external force, names tend to be quite stable. It's inconvenient to change a name. It requires a level of effort that some may feel is unnecessary. And unless a significant disruption occurs, changes will be rather innocuous, like the gradual shift from Brown's Flats with an S to Brown's Flat without an S. Today, we are presented with such an external disruption, local governance reform. Work on restructuring has already begun, and the restructured local governance will take effect on January 1st, 2023. The transition facilitators are already charged with helping each entity determine their type and legal name by July 1st, 2022. But, as the mayor and council have pointed out, the deadline is actually much earlier. It's in May. There are many potential replacements for Grand Bay-Westfield, but only 3 months for us to decide on the best alternative. Any new name should have a history in the area, but cannot be too associated with a previous municipal corporation. Like I said, reusing a municipality's name can make new residents feel excluded from the community. Any initiative to rename the town should also be done in close collaboration with representatives of the Wolastoqiyik. The new name should also be relatively short, unique, and pleasant to the ear. To again quote Ganong, it should be melodious, dignified, unique, and appropriate to the place. As mentioned, Ganong has already provided us with a wide variety of options. Many of the new names he chose came from French or Wolastoqiyik names for the area, although he does clarify that most of the French names are actually just translations of the original Wolastoqiyik. The town has already done a really great job preserving the names of our heritage railway stations and the surrounding cottage communities like Ingleside, Ononnet, Lingley, Sagwa. There are many others. There are also great community names like Glaziers in the former Westfield LSD that could be used instead. The town's name could also revert back to either Grand Bay or Westfield. The Loyalists called this area Westfield because it was the western corner of Kings County. The town's new boundaries are still within the old parish of Westfield, and a significant portion of the town had been the village of Westfield for decades. However, this association with the former village also makes the name unappealing to those living in the former town of Grand Bay. Residents of both Grand Bay and Westfield are very jealous of their respective names. That's a big part of why we ended up with a hyphenated name in the first place. I also want to mention that despite all these entities having the same name, they're all slightly different. Westfield Parish is quite gigantic in comparison to the town, which you can see in the second photo. The village of Westfield was only ever a very small part of the overall parish of Westfield. Grand Bay is named for the bay, connecting the Woollistook and Kennebecasis rivers. Though Grand Bay was an acceptable name for the areas surrounding the old village of Pampanack when they were amalgamated in 1976, other communities like Westfield and the areas along the Narrapis River really aren't all that close to the Grand Bay at all. And these residents associate the name with the village and town rather than the body of water. Now, the first image that I'm showing here is Grand Bay at its largest back in 1988. At that time, about 62% of the coastline was on the Grand Bay. But you can see, the next picture is the tentative boundaries for Entity 51. Grand Bay is really only about 38% of the whole coastline, and that's not even the whole town. You'll also notice that the Grand Bay itself is much larger than just our portion of it. A lot of it is just in St. John, and it has been for quite some time. My point in reviewing these two familiar names is to highlight that while they are familiar, they're not necessarily unique or appropriate to this place, especially not to the entirety of Entity 51. They're also highly contentious. The same feelings associated with these names 20 years ago, when we opted for the hyphen, are still very much alive. There are other names which are more unique, more reflective of our history, be that Wolastoqey history, French history, or English history, and more appropriate to the geography of the new entity's boundaries. Beyond attachment to specific place names, though, another point of contention I've heard a lot about is the potential costs of a name change. Beyond the money allocated at the special meeting previously, people worry about the cost of new signage and branding especially. And you know what, they should. The town has just rebranded. But in contrast to the old town logo, the new abstract logo doesn't actually include any text. Changing the name does not require another rebranding exercise in the short term. The logo works just as well with any of the names you're seeing as it does with Grand Bay Westfield. We have the font, we have the colors. There isn't any pressing need to find some new imagery to match the new name. The new logo has already done a lot of the work of changing the name, actually. You'll see on this sign, it's just a sailboat. You don't have the crest with Grand Bay or Grand Bay Westfield written on it anymore. You'll also notice that it's a sticker. We've just put it over the old one. Just because we change something doesn't mean we need to rip out all the old signs and replace them with brand new expensive signs. We can do this gradually. Now, I don't want to disregard any personal costs of changing name to residents because I don't know everybody's situation, but my point is that costs can be minimized. And so if costs can be minimized, we should start thinking about what we can do with our name, because that is what the provincial government has told us to do, rather than what we can't do with the name. I know that there are a lot of great names that have a history in this community that just aren't as well known as Grand Bay Westfield, but they're nonetheless unique, melodious, and appropriate. And who knows what other new names will be submitted by residents in the coming contest. I, for one, am very excited that we have an actual reason to try and explore new names. Thank you very much for the time to share some of these ideas. I know Grand Bay Westfield is still going to be a name on the ballot, so it might not end up changing. A lot of us are very committed to keeping things the way they are. But since the review is happening, I want to encourage people to try out new options, even if they don't want to change. Workshop them around the dinner table. Be aspirational. Learn a bit more about the history of where you live. Oh my goodness, why is this doing that? My point is that we can have a really great town name, and we should try. Thanks.
Thank you, John. That was a very engaging and educational presentation. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to put that together. And I don't know if you're able or willing to do this, but some of those graphics, the GIF in particular, would we be able to borrow those from you to use on our entity51.ca website?
I would love that. I think every town should have one of these. Moncton has one, and I was angry that we didn't. That's why I spent so much time on it.
It's great. I really like it. So thank you, John. It was like I said, it was very, very positive. There's a lot of food for thought in your presentation, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
I'd like to open.
Would it be possible for this whole workshop to go on Entity 51? That was very educational.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, it
thanks.
was. And John, if you don't mind sharing your entire presentation, we would
Oh, not at all.
appreciate
No,
it.
I'd be happy to.
I'm going to open the floor up to any questions or comments for Mr. Taylor. Deputy Mayor Toole?
Mr. Taylor, I just wanted to thank you. A couple of things that popped out to me that I was really happy with is your discussion of it being an opportunity, not a problem. And I really appreciate kind of that perspective, because it's something that we're kind of tasked with by the government we're put in this situation, but it's not something we have to, oh no, we have to deal with. We should be looking at it positively. So I really wanted to express my appreciation to you, because I really like the tone of the presentation, and I think that's a great way of looking at this. And I know there have been concerns expressed, but I think it is something, it's an opportunity for us to grow as a community and to welcome the new members from the LSD. And I just wanted to, don't really have a question, just really appreciated the tone. It really resonated with me, and I think it was kind of exactly what we needed.
You know, it's change. And everybody loves change until they get changed. And everybody doesn't want to eat the same thing every night at supper. But Lord help you, if you're going to change their address or anything else, you have resistance and pushback. But your positive optimism was very refreshing tonight.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm glad to hear that, Bev. I'm surprised that I'm a person advocating for change. That sort of, I'm not usually about that. I like things the way they are, so I'm surprised as well. But you know, if we have to do it, we should really do the best job we can.
But what an opportunity we have. We didn't have that opportunity when we created Grand Bay-Westfield. And I mean, I'm probably like you. GBW is much easier to write down than what it is Grand Bay-Westfield. And people look at you. And then when you say to them, oh, you forgot the hyphen. And then you've got to explain that we had a marriage between two people or two communities, and we've got to hyphenate it. And this is an opportunity. I mean, it's not one we get every time. And this is great for kids to get involved, and what do they want to name the community, and how do they want to move forward too? So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. John?
Your Worship, if you don't mind, John raised the point about costs and the inconvenience. We're currently preparing to update our frequently asked questions on Entity 51. And some of the preliminary information we have is that elections and local government has been working with Service New Brunswick, so that when it comes to driver's license, health, stuff like that, taxes, all that will be processed automatically through Service New Brunswick, those changes. Elections and local government, also working with the federal government to make changes there as well. And I believe that includes Canada Post, and on the provincial side, some of the Crown agencies. But those are two details we still haven't heard firm replies about yet. Now, when it comes to, for myself, I have a number of subscriptions. Unfortunately, I get monthly bills like everybody, and Amazon ships to our house too. Those things you have to fill out the change address part at the bottom of the bill or form. So usually when they contact you, they'll ask you, do you need to update your address? In my case, say for a subscription I have to put down there, it's not Grand Bay-Westfield, it's $2.99, and it's in KG Quinnipiac or something like that, whatever name we choose. So the cost is mainly the change is being looked after by the province. Your personal subscriptions, personal bills, stuff like that will be something that you have to bear. John raised a good point about branding. The previous council very prudently came up with new colors, new brand. It's administration's intention that we don't want to do that again. It's quite the process. However, if the new council, when somebody from the LSD joins us, decides that, that's just too reminiscent, the council has the opportunity, but that's not a recommendation we'll be bringing at that time. But it's stuff that will make work anyways. And as John said, if you go down to some areas, Majestic used to have it, that's been changed. Some of the streets over there, off of Station Street is where I saw one. You can still see signs that just say the town of Grand Bay. A lot of these changes don't happen overnight. Some of them have been more than 20 years. And then finally, really, where we would probably have some moderate expense, I don't recall the number offhand, but we did make one change. It wasn't too bad, but the big entrance signs into the community, out on 102, near the corner of Campbell Road, we'd have to erect a new sign. And then basically just changing the faces of the existing signs, which is not as expensive as erecting a new sign. So, and all these would be part of the capital budget for 2023, some of those things. So those are just some of the things that we've been able to learn and foresee that John has brought up in his presentation.
And it's a work in progress in terms of the information that we're getting from the province.
Oh, yeah, it's, I don't need to go into those details, but yes, where everybody seems to be scrambling around, making sure that the information is the latest as it changes.
We have any further questions or comments?
The address change, it's just gonna be the name, like the street name and the address, everything stays the same, postal code all stays the same, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was telling people, I didn't think that's gonna change.
And you can still, one of our deputy fire chief is from Neribus. He doesn't live in the town yet. But he can still use 299 whatever street, Neribus, and it'll still be delivered there. So
Because of the postal code.
that's right.
That's right, yeah. So from a postal perspective, community names will remain the same, is my understanding at this point. So, and if that changes, then we'll communicate that.
So other things that's gonna happen, like on a map or GPS, all that stuff is something in the background that's twirling around there?
Yeah, that would be something spearheaded by the province. Likewise, very important issue is stats can, because all our revenue formulas are based on those statistics. The province is changing those boundaries as well with stats can to ensure that we get the right population count, which determines how much money we get.
So like the 911 wouldn't change because everybody still got that address, right?
That's right.
Nothing changes.
That's right. And that would be driven by the province. There's 78 other communities that may be undergoing a name change as well.
Yeah.
There's 79 all told.
So it's the province will be embedding this process within Service New Brunswick and relevant federal agencies, because there are so many of us going through it, to make it as smooth as possible. Do you have any other questions?
Just know one more thing, but that map, that's not gospel, that map, it was there.
No, that's just a graphic that John put together, yeah, that's not an official map.
Alright,
So,
You
if I
scared
may,
you
Your
were gonna be
Worship,
missed?
no, I was meeting on that
sorry,
message.
if I may, Your Worship, I understand the deadline for boundaries is Wednesday, and I believe Louis has the meeting with the transition facilitator to work over a local issue. I think it's near Louis' place, if I remember correctly.
What's that,
You're meeting with the transition facilitator.
oh yeah, it was Shelley and I are gonna be on.
Yeah.
That's good, so Wednesday is the deadline for that.
That's my understanding, yeah. What time Wednesday, I don't know.
I think it was Councillor Balcom or Councillor Billman that had their hand up.
Well, I just did a good job, John, yeah, that was really,
It was
no,
good.
I loved it,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
it
great.
was good. And John, some of the words that you used today sort of resonated with me. I was talking with a resident, and I had used the language like, we have new neighbors coming in. He says, no, he says, you've got that wrong. It's two entities coming together. And I said, you're right. It is two entities coming together. We don't want anyone to feel excluded, whether it's entity 5 or entity 1 becoming entity 51. So I think that's important to make note of and to remark. So if there are no other further questions or comments, John, I really want to thank you for that, and thank you for sharing all of your hard work with us. we will use it, without delay, and, again, thanks for that. So the motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Billman.
So moved.
Second, Councillor Bowden, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Shelley and Louis. And I'll get you to sit back in your the chairs until we get to the naming committee. Thank you very much for participating. So we, next is item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A is regular council minutes of February 14th, 2022. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of February 14th, 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. A second. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 8B, special meeting minutes of February 17th, 2022. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the special meeting held February 17th, 2022. I have a motion. Thank you, Councillor Day. Second. Thank you, Councillor Falcon. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 9, unfinished business. There being none, we move on to item 10, bylaw, yes?
Sorry, last meeting, council asked us to bring a request from Apple Hill to this meeting. Just an update, that information has gone to the engineers for design. And then once it goes through design, we meet with the residents there to ensure that everything works out. Then it'll come to council. So it's a little premature that we can promise that it'll be here next week, but as soon as we have the residents' agreement, it'll be coming back to council for approval.
Thank you for that update, John, I appreciate that. Item 10, bylaws, there being none, we'll move on to item 11, new business recommendations. Item A is grad banners. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the installation of the graduation banners. Council also encourages the committee to apply for the annual grant with the town in April. May I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Day. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can I get you to speak to this item, please?
This will be the second year, I believe, that they've asked to install banners. They see during graduation and they hang up, third year, and they hang above the River Valley Drive. So they've said that they'll be installing them, and we're just encouraging that we do have community money. Why not avail themselves of it?
Councillor Day?
I think it's an excellent idea. We've done it 2 years in a row, and it's really nice to see the young people and their accomplishments. And yes, we started this because of COVID, and they changed to their celebrations at the high school level. But I think it's something that is really nice. It's like the veterans banners. They really do speak a lot about the community. So I'm very happy that we're still doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Yes, Councillor Falcon?
Just a question through your worship to the DCO. Is it my understanding that the graduation banners would stay on the poles until the veterans banners of last week of August or October would replace them? That would save an awful lot of installation cost and takedown cost. I think that's what happened last year.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact details, and then they go back to the students. But long-term, Councillor, it'd be nice to be able to rotate them a little bit more regularly, keep them up over the summer, and then maybe we want something in the fall, something for Christmas, and so on. But that's down the road. But for the time being, we don't have a plethora of banners, so it'd be nice to leave them up because it does add, it contributes to the ambiance of the town.
Sure, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Falcon. Any other questions or comments on the motion? I would just like to highlight too that I've got high schoolers that have had a less than normal high school experience. So I really appreciate the, my first one didn't, was the first high schooler that, COVID high school, so he didn't get them, but it was such a thrill to see it happen last year, and that, you know, my son will benefit from it this year. And I just want to thank the volunteers who this takes a lot of work to put this together. It's Wendy Cruz, Cheryl Palmer, Marlene Benedum, and probably you know, a whole bevy of people behind the scenes making this work. So I just want to thank them for doing that, for on behalf of all the kids who have had a less than normal high school experience the last 2 years. We have all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 11B, landscape maintenance quote 2022. The motion is that the council for the town of Grand Bay-Westfield accept the quote dated October 6th, 2021 to maintain the landscaping at the St. John Transit Bus Shelter south of the arena and for landscape maintenance along Colonel Nays Boulevard, both for 6 months, May to October 2022. I have a motion, please. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Second from Councillor Day. Thank you very much. John, can you please speak to the...
So typically, Your Worship and Council, this isn't brought to Council for approval. That's part of the operations. The reason that this was brought forward, and it's my insistence, is that one of the goals identified by Council is to look at what is, you know, comparing stuff that's contracted out to, is that a service we can provide internally? So this is less for approval. This has been approved in the budget. It's an operational issue, but just again, to highlight to Council that this is what's going on, and that we are mindful of Council's wishes that to review certain practices. So that's why it was brought to Council.
Okay, thank you, John. We have any questions on the motion? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence?
I'm just wondering if this is for maintenance, solely maintenance, or does it include the shrubbery?
It includes the shrubbery as well.
Are there other areas that this includes?
Yeah, so it also includes recreation lots under our rec director, and then the fire chief also uses their service at his facilities.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? I just want to emphasize what our CEO John said about the fact that council is very interested in knowing what the cost of all of these things are, and with an eye to the full municipal services review coming up to determine whether contracting these services out versus bringing them in-house is the most effective and efficient use of the public purse. So thank you for that, John, I appreciate it. So if there are no further questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you, council. 11C, tender renewals 2022. The motion is that the town of Grand Bay-Westfield renew tenders for 2022, subject to the same tendered unit prices and terms and conditions with Classic Construction for asphalt services, approximately $90,000. Four Seasons Sports Limited for pavement markings, approximately $42,026. Phillips Brothers Excavating Limited for street sweeping, approximately $23,500. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Councillor Day, thank you. Do we have any questions? Actually, before we do that, maybe John can speak to this as well.
Yeah, these are annual tasks that are done. Some of these are done on Department of Transport infrastructure at our cost. And anyway, so typically there's a contract, and now we're just asking to extend the contract for 2 years.
These are renewed annually?
Sorry, okay, yeah. So this is ongoing work that's done every year. Riding a bike where the streets haven't been swept can be treacherous. You know, markings fade, and of course we know how bumpy River Valley Drive is right now.
Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. 11D, snow and ice plan amendments. The motion is that the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the operational changes to address winter road safety on Valley View Drive and other priority 1 hills and the school bus stop. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Bailmans. John, could you speak on this, please?
Yeah, so council, when we're brought the snow and ice control tender to council, asked for specific increased levels of service. And so the Works Commissioner has implemented a new procedure for Valley View Drive and included in the tender by changing the spreader location. And also Valley View Drive is up for construction, tentatively speaking, because sometimes maybe there's another road that degrades faster for 23. And at that time, some of the design deficiency in it that doesn't allow for melting and runoff and stuff like that would be corrected. But that type of issue can only be addressed through capital and if that road is at that condition rather than another road. And then the same thing with the school bus stop. Our Works Commissioner does do a daily drive. I think it's twice a day or 3 times a day that he's out and about on his routine. He'll be keeping an eye out for that. But we also need, parents, residents to notify us if they think that it's not a standard it should be, and also working with the school board. Is there anything you want to add to that, Bruce?
No, that's, yeah, I guess until we're aware of the problem, like somebody says it's a problem. And it's one of these things that, well, while the student's there, it's a problem. And when the student graduates, so it's like a moving target, so. But yes, if there's issues, we definitely want to know, so we can look at it correctly.
Thank you, Bruce. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
I just have a quick question, with the school board or the school bus stop issue, isn't there a way every year just to get a list from the school board as to where the buses, so we're aware of that, or do we have to wait and see? Like, is that something we can look into, or?
In New Brunswick, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of that list. In Saskatchewan, we would get requests from the school board. And we had designated pickups. And children may have to walk further than maybe they do here. But that's something that we can ask the Works Commissioner to contact this, his counterpart, to see where he can get a list of designated stops.
That might make your life easier, you're able to have that in advance, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I guess on that, it's not that the designated stop, that's not the issue that was through here, it was a blind corner. So the issue with the school bus stop was where the student actually stopped, but the bus didn't stop right there. Because of the corner, it had to stop further back for the line of sight for the traffic to see the school bus. So it's not like the school bus stopped at the end of the person's driveway, which is originally an issue, but it had to stop back before the driveway because it was on a corner, and it had to have a line of sight for the cars coming to see the school bus. That's
the issue is to get a list of addresses. So.
Do you have any other questions or comments? I just want to thank staff for bringing this back to us. I know that we had sort of a vigorous discussion about it when we sent it back, and I appreciate the responsiveness of staff, so thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11E, name change. I would like to invite our LSD committee representatives to join us back at the table. Thank you, Shelley, Louis.
Thank you.
So we, Shelley and Louis, I know that you already have determined the members of the naming committee, so just 1 second here. So I will get. So if you'd like to announce your designated members of the naming committee first.
Bob Donner and Carrie Burby.
That's great. very much for that. So, as we've discussed it a lot over the last little while, this naming review it's an opportunity for unity, that everyone in our new entity gets to have their fair say in what our identity is going to be as reflected in our name. So this consultation that's going to be happening with the community, with every voice being heard, is a clear demonstration of the power of democracy. So it's important that we do this in the manner in which we are doing it. So with that in mind, we put out a call to action and searching out volunteers to serve on our naming committee, 2 of which you have already provided to us, the other 3 coming from the community of our portion of Entity 51, Grand Bay-Westfield, and we had a very robust response. We had over 20 people apply to be on the committee, which was really great. We sent out a follow-up email with some additional information that we required, and out of that 20, I believe, was it 12 replied? So we're working with that pool of 12 to kind of narrow it down to 3. And we're going to do this in public session. We're going to discuss the candidates and what we're looking for on the committee. So, you know, as I said, I was interviewed by the Telegraph Journal last week, and I said one of our values as a council is transparency, even when it hurts, and that's going to be the way that we do things with everything, including this discussion, so that when the people are on the committee, know that they've been appointed by the committee after a robust discussion in front of the general public. So I guess one of the things that, you know, when we're putting this committee together, we talked about all the components of people that we want to be on the committee. There should there be a generational component, someone who's lived here all of their life, you know, should there be people on the committee that are completely in agreement with the committee? Should we have people who disagree with the process on the committee? And geography plays a role as well. Do we have people from Grand Bay and people from Westfield on the committee? So those are all things that we should be considering when we appoint people to this committee. So I'm going to go through each one of the names that we have on our short list, and I will ask people, you know, as an example, John Taylor, who did our presentation here tonight, he has applied to be on the committee. John's very positive. He's very, he's very constructive. He spent a lot of time engaged in the process already, and he spent a lot of time trying to educate the community and for us. So I would certainly be interested in having him on the committee. So he would be someone that I guess with that particular name, I'm going to go around the room and you tell me what you think. Councillor Balcom?
I thoroughly enjoyed John's presentation. I was pleased to hear him say that one of the names that will be on the ballot still will be Grand Bay-Westfield, so that allayed any fears that I had that he was a strong proponent for the name change. He's leaning towards the opportunity for a new name for the town and the benefits that has, but the fact that he's recognized that the status quo is still an option, I would feel comfortable having John on the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Bailmans?
Well, I found John very open-minded, and he had no real opinions about anything else but focus on everybody's needs for Grand Westfield, so he's a great candidate. I like him.
Deputy Mayor Toole?
And I like your criteria you're putting up, and I think something else we need to think about is criteria of people who have kind of reached out and gone the extra mile, showing that they're interested, not just in being on the committee, but they're interested in the name change and why they're interested in the name change. Because a few people, when they wrote in, gave a bit more detail than others, and John kind of went even above and beyond and asked to come here to present. So I'm really pleased that he put his name forward, because I think he's put a lot of effort into it, and I really like that he also understands the whole process and the reasoning of where this comes from, like his reference to the consultation paper and our role. So I fully support that. I'm really pleased. I liked his tone. I like the fact that he labeled it a name review, which it is, and it noted that Grand Bay-Westfield is on there. It's an opportunity, working together. So yeah, I 100% support.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's an excellent candidate. I like the words he used. This is an opportunity. He's very positive. We can make a positive experience of this. And I liked his reference to we're coming together. It's not they're joining us. We're coming together to be one. So for me, he's a no-brainer.
Councillor Day?
I'm going to echo all of the comments that my councillor peers made, because I'm very impressed with the presentation tonight and the open-mindedness, and I love opportunities, so I'm totally supportive on that.
Councillor Day? So we had two of the people that responded with that second email that are more critical of the process and the need for a name change. So we had Amanda Ham and Emily Thomas, both Grand Bay-Westfield residents. One is more openly critical of the need for a name change, and one is more quietly critical. So I guess the question is, I think that we need to discuss this. It speaks to accountability in terms of having someone on the committee who is not necessarily understanding of why we need to go through this process. But again, this is something I think that we need to discuss. The other thing that we need to talk about is that geographical portion of it. We have a couple of residents of the former Westfield, Bill Cameron and Rob Wilson, that both, again, answered that second email. And I think it's important that we have that component from a geographical perspective, particularly when we're looking back at 1998 and the scars that still remain from that. And then we have people that have lived here all of their lives, such as Erica Kelly. She was a former owner of the Grand Bay Pharmacy. She's lived here her entire life. So, is that a perspective we want on there? The challenge is we only have the 3 spots to fill, and we have, all of these great perspectives that we would benefit from having on the committee. So, this is not going to be an easy job. So we are all in agreement that John Taylor will be one of those spots, so we have 2 more spots to fill. So I'm looking for some discussion and some ideas. I'm just going to go around. I'll start with Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Your Worship. You mentioned earlier that there should be, or a possibility would be to have a representative from the current Westfield part of Grand Bay-Westfield, in addition to 1 or 2 from Grand Bay. I would completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
On this council that we are all members of right now, I'm the only councillor from the former village of Grand Bay-Westfield and now from the Westfield portion of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield. I think for something as important as a potential name change, I think we should, on this steering committee, on this naming committee, have that geographic representation and have at least 1 representative of the 3 from Westfield. So that would mean definitely one of the 2 names that submitted their names forward, and that would be Bill Cameron or Rob Wilson.
Is Melissa Foote from the other?
Oh, yes, and Melissa Foote, I'm sorry, Melissa Foote is actually a third person
From the Westfield.
from the Westfield
Then I
area,
would
but
add the
that's
name
my
as well.
mistake. So we do have, is council in agreement that we need to have that geographical representation on the committee?
Yes. Yes.
So then we have Bill Cameron, who's a former firefighter for both Westfield and Grand Bay-Westfield. He's a current paramedic. We have Rob Wilson. John, do you have any information on Rob? I know that he lives in the former village of Westfield near you.
Yeah, so he lives up in that little subdivision off of 102 in the corner of Narcos Road. He wrote in 2013 requesting council to review the name and see if there's an opportunity for a different name. Mayor Lozier was directed by council to speak with him, and nothing came of it. He has again expressed interest, so this has been a passion of his for a number of years.
Thank you. And then we have Melissa Joy. Oh, sorry.
I'm just wondering if we're interested in a generational aspect as well. If we could marry geography and generation, and I'm just wondering if we know the ages of the applicants?
Not with certainty, it's our understanding. Sorry, I'll refer to the director.
I can speak for, your worship, for Rob Wilson, I graduated with him, so he's my age, 61.
Okay, thank you.
And we understand that Bill Cameron is approximately in his mid-50s, somewhere around there. Troy,
I certainly can't say with certainty, so I'm not gonna.
he was
Somewhere in that range.
He was a firefighter in the 90s and then in the 2000s.
And he's still a paramedic.
And he's still a paramedic. So he has a certain maturity about, but not too mature.
It's very diplomatic, John.
Could have been better though.
Threading the needle there. And I know that I know Melissa. She is Melissa's younger than me. She has children. Some of her children are around the same age as me, so she would be younger. She was also an excellent candidate from the Westfield area. So this is sort of where it gets tough. Yes, John?
I was just gonna say, I believe it was Rob Wilson also volunteered on the River Valley Community Center for a number of years as well. So he's been engaged with the community for a long time.
Yeah, and you know, that speaks to community service both with Bill and with Rob, and you know, I know Melissa does as well. But you're right, we're looking for that sort of generational aspect of it that might, you know, push Bill or Rob over the line a little bit further. Councillor Day, what are your feelings on the matter?
I think all three of them are excellent candidates, and you're right, it does become very hard when we've only got two other positions. I'd like to start maybe looking at some of the other candidates that we have here. You're right about marrying age and community of involvement, but Erica Kelly, who used to be a former owner of the Grand Bay Pharmacy, and I don't know if you guys know Kate Francis. And then we've got two at the top that you addressed, your worship. I'm finding it very, very hard to consider one of them at any one time. The issue I have is if you're going to take an opportunity that we have, that we're being forced with by the provincial government, and then turn it into a negative situation in the community when we're trying to build a community, I have issue with that. And I've read the stuff on Facebook, and I've read the comments and how this particular candidate stirs the pot. And I'm thinking, why are you doing it? You're doing it to hurt the community. And is there any benefit for you maligning and turning citizen against citizen on this? We've already heard the reports this evening from our CAO that we still have the town of Grand Bay on some of our street signs. This isn't going to affect us 100% overnight. And why the person has to call Hampton to find out what they're doing. There's 79 entities in this province that are looking at name changes. And I'll tell you, I don't have the time in my life to call 71 entities or 79 to find out what their processes are and why they're doing it. And I really, this is our community. It's got nothing to do with Hampton. We're part of a region, yes, but this is my community. And we should all be stepping up to the plate and doing what we can do to be positive and not stir the pot here in the town, causing people to be upset. And I am so glad, because there was a comment about some senior calling with crying because they didn't want to change the name Grand Bay-Westfield. Well, it's still there on the ballot, and we've made that very clear on more than one occasion. And so I'm down, if I look at this, to a potential of 4 people: Bill Cameron, Rob Wilson, Erica Kelly, and Melissa Foote. And out of those 4, we have to make a decision tonight. Is it gonna be popular? Well, maybe with those 2 that get on there, and I expect to see a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, and I hope people shut the negative naysayers down. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you, Councillor Day. So, again, if we're working on, if we're looking at it from a geographical perspective, then let's try and narrow that down. So, if I'm looking at it, as stellar as I think Melissa is, I think that if we can get some generational perspective on the committee as well as geographical perspective on the committee, I think that would serve the residents of the town very well. So from the residents of former Westfield, for me, I think it would be down to Bill Cameron or Rob Wilson.
Your worship, I think this probably is the same, I guess, issue that made me tip in favor of John Taylor, might make me tip in favor of Rob Wilson, and that they've kind of come forward with a name proposal where they've shown a kind of I don't know, Melissa, I'm sure they'd be absolutely excellent from Westfield, but it's really hard to choose. So if I was just choosing a tipping point, it might be that somebody has either had a passion for looking at the name or an interest in it. So maybe not knowing anything else, I think they'd all be absolutely great, but from the Westfield area, maybe that's just my
That was my point as well. He's already asked for this to be looked into.
So he's already engaged in the process, is sort of what you're saying. Councillor Day,
I'm in agreement.
Councillor Bailman's,
I
what
think
are your
Rob
thoughts?
Wilson's probably a great guy. You don't hear engaged before, and I don't hear no negative things about him, or you won't mind. I like to see that. I won't mind it, so.
Yeah, that's important, I think. Yeah. Jim?
Both Mr. Cameron and Mr. Wilson would be excellent choices. It's a tough call to have to say yes to one and no to the other, because they're both very, very good. But I do appreciate the fact that our CIO told us that Mr. Wilson, back in 2013, proactively contacted the town. I think that that says something. So I would be very supportive of Mr. Wilson if the rest of council felt that there was a leaning towards Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, I feel that way, and like I said, this is a really hard job. This is a list of very good people. So this is tough for all of us to do, and it certainly would be easier for us to do this, have this conversation behind closed doors. But I think it's very important that we do this in front of everybody. I know I said that before, and it might be a little bit painful for people watching, but this conversation, it's key to have out. So, okay, so we've got, so far, we have agreements on John Taylor, and we have agreements on Rob Wilson.
And your worship, I'm gonna start the roll on this one. I'd like to suggest Erica Kelly. Someone who is really respected business-wise in this community and knows the whole community and the history, and she has spent, well, if she hasn't spent her whole life here, she's just about spent it here. And her husband running the Grand Bay Pharmacy were very supportive of this community and incredible business owners. And they were recognized by this community more than once for all the things that they have done. And I think she would be an incredible asset to this team.
Thank you, Councillor Bay. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence?
I agree that I love the thought of Erica Kelly, but I really think we need someone that is critical and not necessarily in agreement with a name change. That I think that would make the committee well-rounded, more transparent. So I would think, for me, the third would be down to Amanda and Emily.
Deputy Mayor Toole?
I had similar thoughts. I'm not sure what, I think Erica's fantastic and would be an excellent member of the committee. I'm not sure too much about her thoughts on it, but I do know that both Emily did reach out, I think even before the naming committee, to get more detailed information on it because she wasn't certain about it. So I thought that was another person who kind of reached out on their own to get more information because they were engaged in the process, but not because she was excited about it, because she really wanted to know more because she was concerned. So I thought that was great. And I know Amanda has also been really involved in the process and that she's had quite a few concerns that she's put out there too. So I think it does add, as long as the individuals are really wanting to work with everyone and wanting to go forward and seeing it as an opportunity, I think it would be fine having somebody who has been questioning it, because I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But again, it's hard because I think Erica would be great. I know Emily and Amanda, like it's hard to make a short list.
Yeah, it is, and I've said this before, that hard questions are welcomed.
Yeah.
Those are important. Negative rhetoric, not so much, but we need to have the hard questions. So I think one of the key things that we have to keep in mind are the people on the committee committed to believing in the process.
And I think if I was going my same weighing that I did with John and with Rob, I think I might lean towards Emily because she did reach out on her own as well, kind of like John did and kind of like Rob did, but that would just be my own personal thoughts because it's extremely hard to separate them out because I think they'd all be excellent. So if you have to take one thing that might twist it, that might be, but again, I'm just one person as well.
Okay, all right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Councillor Bob?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, 3 excellent people to choose one from. I would support, without hesitation, Erica Kelly. I've had the pleasure of working with her on a number of volunteer initiatives in the Grand Bay area. She would have been owner of the pharmacy with her husband during the last amalgamation, and she would have that memory of what went right, what went wrong, what could we do better, and the number of volunteer organizations that she assisted with, and when I was on the Chamber of Commerce back then, she assisted our chamber wonderfully. I know her capabilities, and she would be fair and fair to the process as well, so she would get my support.
Councillor Bellman, what are your thoughts?
Well, I looked them over myself, and I think Erica Kelly would be the vital person for the job, I think, and I don't see her on the community page talking, or it's good for me just to have her on, because I get the open transparency. She's my pick.
So we have 3 councillors that have put forward the name Erica Kelly for that 3rd spot. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence and Deputy Mayor Toole, how do you feel about that?
No objections here.
That's fine. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Okay, so after a lot of discussion, and and I know we've all been soul searching about this, because at the end of the day, we want the best representation for the entire community. And like I said, hard questions are welcomed, and that's going to be part of the process. We need to make sure that we're doing this right, and when we open this up to that kind of process, it means that we're more clear-eyed when we're moving forward with our processes and decisions. So, we have it. Do we want any more discussion on the candidates, or are we happy with the final 3? John Taylor, Rob Wilson, and Erica Kelly.
Just one more comment, Your Worship.
Yes.
I think the council should take this opportunity to realize how blessed we are that we had 20 people step up and 12 people respond to the subsequent questionnaires that the CIO sent, all with fantastic skill sets, experiences, everything. We've had a tough decision we have to make tonight, and that's to pick 3. There's going to be 12 minus 3, 9 people who are going to be upset, but we have a job to do, and but we are also very blessed, and I hope those other 9 will be able to help in some other way with first the naming and then whatever else happens as we grow this town.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Malcolm. There's going to be a fairly vigorous engagement process, and the people that hopefully were committed enough to the community to put their names forward for this really important committee, hopefully they'll be able to be actively involved in that engagement process, either through the schools or through Age Friendly or through any of the service clubs or organizations that we're going to engage when the naming committee gets rolling and starts looking for name recommendations. So there are other ways for people to get involved. And I actually want to thank every single person that went and put their name forward for the committee. We really appreciate the commitment that shows to the community, as a whole. So, John, do you have anything to add to the?
No, Your Worship, we'll notify people. There'll be a release to the public tomorrow after the successful candidates have been contacted. The next step will to have a quick meeting with our LST friends as well, and that'll be to go over, one, the committee will have to select a chair, Your Worship, someone to speak for the committee. Then we've drafted some rules around the naming competition and submissions, and then we'll have to send out those forms and whatnot. So we'll have to have a meeting, we'll have to check calendars, and then we'll go on from there. And just to reiterate, Your Worship, administration will be supporting the committee primarily through our communications officer and our admin assistant, and I'll be there at the first meeting as well.
Thank you, John. And I want to emphasize too that this process is about inclusion and consultation and collaboration. And with our LSD representatives at the table with us and this committee involving people from Westfield West and people from Grand Bay Westfield, this is the first real tangible example of the new Entity 51 working together. And it's not going to be easy, but you should all be proud of the work that you're doing and the work that we're going to be doing together. So thank you for that. So I guess the motion now on the table is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay Westfield appoint the following 3 Grand Bay Westfield residents to the naming committee. Oh, that's a good idea. Would you like to comment before we go to the vote?
I think it's really good that we're getting different perspectives and views on the committee. I think that what you chose on, based on the information you had and your great candidates, was excellent. And I'm looking forward to where we're going from here.
Thank you, Shelley. Louis?
Just the names like Rob Wilson, I know of Rob, and Erica, of course, I know her from the drugstore. Yeah, she'd be excellent on this. But then, so what's going to be happen next is we're all going to get together somewheres, or?
Yes, I just explained that. We'll work out a date. Nicole will probably send out a doodle poll, or if you don't mind calling in, Louis, if you can't respond to the doodle poll. And we'll talk about selecting a chair for the committee who will speak for it. And in the proposal that we develop, we're recommending that it be someone not on the not on the transition committee, so it'll be one of the 5 nominated tonight. Finalize the form and the rules around the submission, and then we'll launch the competition. Then the next meeting would be in about a month or so. I've forgotten the exact date, but it's around the end of March, give or take, when all the names have to be submitted, and then the committee will meet again to go through all the submissions and what seems appropriate, come up with about 5. Preferably 3 names, potentially 4 or 5, and then we'll have a vote. That's the end around the 3rd week of April. So I'm going off on memory. It's been a lot of other water under the bridge. And then the committee, May 2nd, I think it is, will come before council with a recommendation. And then May 9th, council, and I would encourage you to attend through the invitation of the mayor to vote on what the new name of entity 51 would be, or the Grand Bay-Westfield name, to affirm the status quo, and then the committee will be over. Okay.
So I will state the motion, and once we have a motion and a second, I will ask everyone to vote, including the members of the LSD committee that are here with us today. So the motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield appoint the following 3 Grand Bay-Westfield residents to the naming committee: John Taylor, Rob Wilson, Erica Kelly, and the following 2 residents of the LSD: Robert Donner, Carrie Burpee. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council, and thank you, Shelley and Louis, again, for coming here with us tonight and participating in this really important procedure and process and decision. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
So I know the points for you.
Oh, that's for me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the February 28th, 2022 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $70,182.45. We have a motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Councillor Day, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
I just have
Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
only 2.
Only 2?
Only 2.
Oh.
Number 23, Keel Construction. Which storm sewer is that?
So, believe it or not, there's infrastructure installed before Bruce worked for the town. And this is on Evergreen Drive? Yeah, Evergreen Drive. And what happened is there was some significant sinkholes that had developed over old infrastructure that old storm sewer that's no longer being used. So for safety reasons, that was pulled out. We were not anticipating that price tag. So that was a bit of a surprise.
And number 39.
So.
Points, I guess I see them on the table.
Yeah, so this is from River Valley Coins. We also gave them grant money last fall, if you recall. And so what they do is they're raising money for the restoration of monuments and also care of sculptures and stuff like that. So they've been doing it a short time. They've not been able to fundraise very much. But that's where that money goes for. And I have an email here somewhere. So on the River Valley Coins Committee are both Corey and Jennifer Ryan, Ray Riddell, Mark Poole, Ron Wilson, and the accountant that they have is Chris Curry. And anyway, so they still owe $1,500 on the original investment to be able to start the whole process. So once that's paid off, then all money raised after that will go to the restoration of monuments and things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion?
I have one small comment.
Deputy Mayor Tool.
Just a quick comment, it's just an observation that we've had a few very, very small amounts on this bills for payment to cover family day costs, and it shows me how much you can do a ton with very little. So I just want to, it would probably come up during council reports, but to applaud Councilor McIntosh Lawrence and the mayor in particular and the work that they did to get that event underway, because there's very, very minimal payments on here to make that an incredible day that I think hundreds of people enjoyed. So that struck me that there's very little on here for that, so I thought that was a nice observation.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Tool. So do we have any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 13, consent agenda. There being none, let's move on to item 14, council reports. And let's start with Councillor Bellman's today.
I'm on today, but it was, I'm good.
But you should,
Yeah, yes, actually I started with you tonight because you actually had, you did some really great stuff for Family Day, and I think you
yes,
should
the
share
fire
it.
pit and the
That's just
bird
Mother
dog.
Nature. That's our community.
I'll give John's council report for him.
Okay, good to have.
John was absolutely key in making Family Day the amazing event that it was. We were very, very aggressive in terms of how many fire pits we wanted, because we were anxious that everybody would be able to roast marshmallows and hot dogs and not have to gather close together around 1 or 2 fire pits. So we had, how many, John?
5.
6?
5?
I think there were 6 or 7.
No wonder you were busy.
But John donated the wood, drove it up to the top of the golf club driveway, and tended those fires all day long. So
With help, Steffi's time. They're great, great help.
I just wanted to point out, John, that I know that was a dirty job, and you did it well, and you did it for the community, and you did it, you know.
I don't like
At
credit,
your own
I don't
cost,
enjoy
thank you
credit,
for
so
that.
I just do what you do,
Yeah.
so.
So that's the mayor giving Councillor Bellman's Councillor.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank
Thank you.
Councillor Bellman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing major to report, except a lot of discussions on the telephone, over coffee, one-on-one in person, with residents of both the, all over Grand Bay-Westfield, and some from the Westfield West LSD about what is taking place with the new NGB 51, ranging from names to taxes to garbage, all kinds of things. I felt that and feel that it's very important to take the time and spend whatever time is needed to inform. I don't know if it will allay fears, but it will certainly inform. And in closing, I'd like to say one of the best discussions that I had the honor last Saturday of having tea and donuts from the bake shop at the home of former mayor of the village of Westfield, Murray Davis, and his wife, Esther. And I'm glad that I did. He brought some history from pre-village of Westfield days with the parish of Westfield. So I'm glad that I did that.
That perspective from history is so important to take forward with us as we go into what we're heading into. So
I'm looking forward to maybe inviting John Taylor to have tea with us some other time as well.
We would love that. Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to talk to everybody. It really does make a difference, because when people don't know, you know, they feel that vacuum with fear. So, you know, if we give people real facts and let them know as much as we can,
know.
you know, then you know, like I said, it may not allay fears, but at least they have information with which they can move forward. So thank you for that. Councillor Day?
Well, first of all, I'd like to compliment Stephanie on an incredible Family Day. I know you don't want to be, but she did an incredible job, and the number of people that came out blew me away, and I never heard one negative comment. I almost wanted to do a happy dance at once, but I was scared I'd hit ice and then go flying. But it was a really, really good day in our community, and the smiles on people's faces. I don't know if it was because we all got out without COVID and had a chance to finally talk to people. I know people said hello to me, but with masks on and that, I have no idea who they are. But it was really, really a good day. And I love handing out cookies, so thank you. And I think it's wonderful. So that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Day, and thank you also, you know, you were, actually all of council was there that day and worked hard, so I appreciate that, so thank you.
No problem.
Macintosh Lawrence.
So I just wanted to thank everyone that came out for Family Day, all the residents, all of council that helped. John, the mayor, said what you did, you were amazing. Councillor Bailens, Deputy Mayor Toole, you sort of mitigated some parking issues that may have occurred, and Councillor Day with your handing out cookies, everybody came together. It was an incredible day, and the only issue we had was the parking. So for an event like that, and to only have that as an issue, I think that was a win-win. So thank you everyone for making it such a great day.
Yes, and thank you, Stephanie, it was fun to put that together with you, you're definitely the queen of event planning, so. Deputy Mayor Toole.
Just last couple weeks, there's been a few more meetings with on the local governance reform union of municipalities in New Brunswick meetings, and also there was a kind of a check-in meeting with the Regional Facilities Commission as well. So those are all examples of working with other communities through all these transition issues. And I just want to take a quick opportunity to plug for individuals who talk about how it's important to get the right information and talk to people and reach out, and just to let everyone know that with our new communications officer, there's a ton of stuff on our town website, and we do have a new Entity 51 website as well. So really encourage everyone to follow those sources on Facebook, to check out the websites. The mayor has a page on Facebook that gives updates. These are great places to get. As soon as we know it, you'll know it. That's kind of what we've committed to do, and the mayor has been lauded for her efforts on transparency by the minister and in the paper recently. So really, really take advantage of the fact that you have that type of leadership here, and look at the sites we have out there and the information we've got going, because I think you'll learn a lot, because the naming issue seems to have gotten the most chatter, but it's just one piece of a gigantic local governance puzzle. And the more you know about it, I think the less fear you'll have and the more excitement you'll have that the whole province is changing, the entire landscape is changing, and we're a piece of it. The more you know, the more comfortable you'll be, and you realize it's not something to fear. We're not the only ones doing this. We have a lot of opportunities to have provincial help, have kind of chart our own course. There's some things that our CAO and our mayor have done that have become examples for the rest of the province. So just encourage everyone, really call us if you don't know where those sites are, and we'll tell you, or go online and look at our town website, and all the links are there. So that's some really good stuff there.
Deputy Mayor Toole. For my report, I've been all over and done all kinds of things, including Family Day. I think I just want to highlight one of the events I was at today, though, and it was a regional mayor's meeting with the minister, Daniel Alain, and he did talk about how Grand Bay-Westfield is being held up as the gold standard for how this process should go forward, from our high levels of transparency, from our commitment to communication, to the excellent processes that are developed by our staff, and for that, in fact, our processes have been, the province has asked to borrow them so that other municipalities, and there are a lot of them going through the same thing, can use those, so that it goes in as an effective and efficient manner as possible. So I thought that was really important, because we've talked a lot about the chatter going on, the phone calls that you're getting and the emails that you're getting, and I think that is a result of the fact that we've been transparent and we've communicated. So people are actually engaged, and that is a sign of success. So when you have that resident engagement, then it allows us to do things better and be more strategic in the way that we're moving forward. So I can bore you with all the other stuff that I do, like sending checks and stuff, but that was the really big one. And I just wanted to thank staff and council for being so supportive in the direction that we're moving, so that we are in that position where we're being held up as the gold standard from a provincial perspective. So congratulations to everybody on that. So if we'll move on to item 15, business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we'll move on to item 16, adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:29 p.m.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Belcom. Do we have a second? Thank you, Councillor Day. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried.